Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're tackling a huge question, really fundamental to living online now. Can you actually escape mass surveillance?
Yeah, we've got this really interesting set of sources here. And they seriously question, whether all the usual digital defenses, VPNs, secure chat, all that actually work.
We use this metaphor of the botnet for this sort of total surveillance state.
Exactly. And, most people figure, okay, I'll install a VPN, maybe switch messaging apps, and I'm good. But this research, it's deeply skeptical. It's basically saying these tech fixes are like putting a Band-Aid on a broken leg.
Or maybe even distracting us from where the real problem lies.
That's the core argument we're exploring today, that this isn't a fight you win just by installing better software. Because the real botnet, as they call it, it's physical, it's systemic, it's baked into who owns the actual infrastructure.
So our mission for this deep dive is to really dig into that claim. Is avoiding mass surveillance actually impossible, given how society is set up right now?
Okay, so let's start where most people do, those digital defenses. The sources definitely acknowledge that, yeah, replacements exist for pretty much everything. Social media, instant messaging, voice calls.
Right, things like Signal, or maybe federated stuff like Matrix or XMPP.
Exactly. But the argument is that the protection they offer, it's often just not enough because they don't or maybe can't account for the political and physical world they operate in.
That makes sense. So let's take the most common one, VPNs. Why aren't they the silver bullet people think they are? They hide your IP, route your traffic, promise no logs. Sounds pretty good.
It sounds good, but that promise can be pretty fragile. The source material points to specific cases like, remember the Earth VPN thing? They had this strong no-log policy, publicly stated.
Blech.
But then, boom, legal pressure comes knocking, and suddenly they did have information on a user. See, these companies are essentially just proxies. You're funneling all your internet traffic through their servers.
So you're just shifting trust from your ISP to the VPN provider.
Pretty much. You've swapped one third party you have to trust for another, and you don't always know what's happening behind the scenes.
And okay, let's say you find a truly ethical provider, one that genuinely tries to keep zero logs. That doesn't make them immune to, like, real-world force, does it?
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
If they operate in certain jurisdictions, say the Five Eyes countries, they can be hit with secret legal orders compelling them to start logging right now.
Right, or worse.
Or worse, authorities can just decide to physically raid the data center, seize the servers. The policy doesn't matter much when someone walks out the door with the actual hardware. Physical control trumps policy.
Okay, so VPNs have holes. What about secure messaging? People move to Signal, Telegram, things like that. What are the problems there?
Well, there are a couple of big ones. First is just usage, network effect, right? Your super secure app isn't much use if all your friends and family are still on Facebook Messenger or whatever.
Yeah, the critical mass problem. Yeah.
Definitely. But second, even the strong contenders have their own issues. Signal and Telegram, for instance, usually need your phone number to sign up.
Which immediately links your supposedly secure identity back to your real-world identity, your phone contract.
Exactly. And then you have things like Keybase, which had some security issues found in an audit. The Matrix protocol, too, had a vulnerability discovered not that long ago. No system is perfect.
But the sources highlight something even bigger recently. Not a technical bug, but a legal attack. You mentioned chat control, the August 2025 updates.
Ah, yes. This is fascinating because the new version says it forbids breaking end-to-end encryption. So you think, okay, that's good. Right.
Yeah, seems like a win. So how does it undermine secure platforms if it can't break the encryption?
It's clever in a really insidious way. It's like a flanking maneuver. It attacks the providers, not the encryption itself. It buries them under regulatory burdens that make it almost impossible for small, decentralized, or privacy-focused services to even exist.
How does it do that?
It forces every communication provider, even some guy running a tiny XMPP server in his basement, to do an annual risk assessment about child sexual abuse material, CSAM.
Okay, an assessment. That sounds bureaucratic, but maybe manageable.
But then comes the mitigation part. That's the killer. You need mandated moderators, specific clauses in your terms of service, built-in reporting tools for users.
That sounds like a lot for a small operation.
It is. And crucially, you need to collect statistical data. The sources are blunt here. This is basically the end of no-logs services as a viable concept.
Wow.
And wait, there's more. You also have to put in place age verification and age assessment measures. Think about the cost, the complexity, the privacy implications of that.
It sounds designed to make non-corporate services impossible.
It really does, and it reveals this fundamental misunderstanding by some policymakers, what the sources call the gov-boomer perspective.
Okay, what's the GovBoomer angle? How does that relate to something like XMPP?
They seem to assume everything works like, say, Discord or Signal, where one company controls the server and the app on your phone.
Right, a closed ecosystem.
Exactly. So if you control both ends, maybe you can force the client app to scan messages for bad stuff before they get encrypted. Client-side scanning.
Okay, so detected pre-transmission.
Yes. But with open protocols like XMPP, it's different. The person running the server doesn't control the software you choose to run on your computer or phone. There are dozens of different XMPP clients.
So the server admin can't force your client to scan anything.
Precisely. They literally cannot comply with that legal requirement to detect CSAM prior to transmission because they never see the unencrypted data and they have no control over the endpoint software.
So, okay, even if the XMPP server itself is secure and the encryption holds, the person running it gets buried under impossible legal demands for moderation, age checks, reporting.
Yep. It basically legislates decentralized and self-hosted communication out of existence. The takeaway is stark. You can have the best software in the world, but if the system, the legal framework, is designed to crush it, you still lose.
Which naturally leads us to anonymity networks. If strong encryption isn't enough because the platform itself can be attacked, people look for anonymity. Tor is the big one.
A classic example, yeah.
But Tor isn't foolproof either, is it? What are the limits there?
Well, the standard way Tor works involves bouncing your traffic through 3 relays, but the last one, the exit node, has to decrypt your traffic to send it to the final website.
So if the website isn't using HTTPS,
That exit node sees everything in plain text, your passwords, your messages, whatever. Plus, Tor isn't exactly hidden. The list of exit nodes is public.
meaning governments or even corporations can just block all traffic coming from known Tor exit nodes.
And they do. We've seen it happen. Venezuela blocked Tor exit nodes, for example. It's a known tactic.
And even if it's not blocked, anonymity can be broken just by, well, being human, right? Correlation attack.
Absolutely. That Harvard bomb threat case is the textbook example. The authorities figured out who sent the email because they were basically the only person on the entire campus network using TOR at that specific time. Simple timing correlation.
Ouch.
And it's not just correlation. The sources remind us the FBI literally paid Carnegie Mellon University researchers to find ways to de-anonymize TOR users. That research directly led to arrests, like the guy running Silk Road 2.0.
So active attacks are happening, and the sources point out another vulnerability, one that's maybe less immediate but potentially more devastating, something about the math itself.
Yeah, this is a longer-term worry. Your anonymity today relies on the underlying encryption algorithms, the ciphers, being strong today. But state actors, especially, are known to record vast amounts of encrypted traffic.
Just storing it, even if they can't read it yet.
Exactly, hoarding it, because if those encryption methods are broken in the future, say by quantum computers, then all that stored data becomes readable. Your past anonymous activity isn't safe forever.
That's a chilling thought. And there's also a trust issue baked into TR itself, isn't there? Something about directory authorities.
Right. The whole network kind of relies on these 9 trusted by default directory authorities. They're the servers that essentially maintain and distribute the master list of all the active TOR relays.
So if they get compromised,
Then the integrity of the whole network is questionable. An attacker controlling them could potentially feed users malicious relay lists or spy on the network structure. And, the sources definitely ask the question, how sure are we that they aren't already compromised to some extent?
And then there's this even newer thing from November 2024, an abuse attack. What's that about?
This one is really interesting because it shows how you can attack a decentralized tech system using social and legal systems. The attack basically involves flooding TOR node operators, who are mostly just volunteers running servers with fake abuse complaints.
Like DMCA takedowns or reports of illegal content originating from their node.
Exactly. Spam, hacking attempts, CSAM reports, all sorts of nasty stuff, often faked or deliberately routed through their node. Now, these volunteers, they get cease and desist letters, their hosting provider gets angry, maybe law enforcement contacts them.
So the real-world pressure becomes unbearable.
Totally. They face legal threats, social stigma, the hassle is immense. So what do? They shut down their TO relay.
And every relay that shuts down makes the network smaller and less anonymous for everyone else.
Precisely. It's an attack on the people running the network, using the legal system as a weapon, regardless of the encryption's strength.
Okay, so let's recap. We've seen that just installing better software doesn't work because the platforms can be undermined legally or financially. Using anonymity networks like Tier doesn't fully work because of technical limits, human error, future decryption risks, and these real-world pressure tactics.
And this leads directly to the core argument in the source material. You cannot win this purely digital fight. It always comes back to who owns and controls the physical infrastructure, the wires, the servers, the data centers, and who makes the rules for using it.
But hang on, isn't that a bit hopeless? Doesn't decentralization offer any advantage? Like people running their own federated servers or using peer-to-peer stuff like torrents, doesn't that shift the power a bit?
It shifts the problem, maybe,
Yeah.
but it doesn't solve it fundamentally. Federated instances like Mastodon or Matrix servers run by individuals, they often struggle with reliability, finding users, staying online, and they're arguably easier to censor globally because you just need to lean on that one admin.
Okay. And torrenting.
Still relies on the underlying internet connection provided by your ISP. And people get copyright notices, fines, legal threats all the time. The sources argue even if you invented some perfect, undetectable mesh network technology tomorrow,
Governments would just ban the devices.
or compromise them at the factory before you even buy them, or, in the most extreme scenario, if they felt they were truly losing control of the internet, they could just damage the core infrastructure, cut the undersea cables, shut down the major internet exchange points, physical control again.
So if the digital defenses are flawed and decentralization just moves the target, we have to face what the sources call the real botnet.
Which boils down to a simple, maybe uncomfortable truth. All your internet activity, everything you do online, flows through networks you don't own and don't control. Your ISP, backbone providers, data centers.
They can watch it, they can modify it, they can block it.
At will, really, if the legal framework allows or compels them to. The botnet isn't just software. It's in the routers, the silicon chips, the fiber optic cables, and maybe most importantly, it's embedded in the legal and political systems that justify surveillance and control.
The most obvious example of this physical control, the one nobody can really ignore, is CCTV. Right?
Absolutely. Once those cameras go up, public or private, you are being watched. Your physical movements in supposedly public spaces are recorded, stored, analyzed. The sources argue your very presence is treated as their property, data to be collected.
And this leads to that kind of bleakly funny image they paint, the fake botnet fighter.
Yeah, this hypothetical person who's done everything right technically. They're running Qubes OS, which is super secure. They're using 2R for everything. They're paying for things with untraceable cryptocurrency like Monero.
Perfect digital hygiene.
Inside their house, maybe? But the second they walk out the door, bam! Multiple CCTV cameras capture their face, track their movements. All that sophisticated digital defense is instantly bypassed by simple physical surveillance. Tech-only resistance is futile if you ignore the physical world.
And this ties into the rigged relationship we have with service providers too, doesn't it? This idea that we're always just running to the next better company.
Right. The system encourages this constant churn. One company gets caught doing something shady, so we all jump ship to a competitor, hoping they'll be ethical.
But the fundamental power imbalance remains.
Exactly. Look at the examples given, like web hosting companies Incognet or Evolution Host. Their terms of service often say they can change the rules at any time without notice. They can decide they don't like you anymore and kick you off.
And if you paid in crypto,
Mm-hmm.
good luck getting a refund.
Precisely. Non-refundable. You have zero recourse. You signed up based on one set of promises, privacy, free speech, whatever, and they can just pull the rug out from under you. You're
Yeah.
forced to trust entities that hold all the power and can change the agreement whenever they want.
The sources make a really powerful point here. The very fact that we, as ordinary people, have to spend so much time and energy researching basic life necessities, food safety, car reliability, drug side effects, bank ethics, just to find one option that isn't actively harmful or exploitative.
It's a symptom, they say, a clear sign that we clearly went wrong somewhere. The default setting for almost everything in modern society seems to be surveillance and taking advantage of the user, not protecting them.
So, if the tech fixes are insufficient and the system itself is rigged, what's the proposed solution? It sounds pretty radical.
It is. The sources essentially call for a complete systemic overhaul. They argue the only real path forward is, and this is a direct quote, reclaiming the infrastructure from the forces of evil.
Wow, what does that even mean in practice?
It implies things like building our own communication networks, maybe even our own factories to produce trustworthy hardware, designing cities and communities with privacy built in from the ground up.
That sounds less like tweaking the system and more like, well, revolution.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
The analysis suggests the current web of slavery, as they put it, is just too deep, too interconnected to be fixed with small technical patches or minor reforms.
But okay, let's be realistic. The average person, your secretary, your plumber, my grandma, isn't going to become an expert in cryptography, self-hosting servers, or building mesh networks. That's just not feasible.
No, absolutely not. And that's where this crucial idea of sane defaults comes in.
Right. Explain that. What's the goal there?
The goal isn't to turn everyone into a cybersecurity expert. It's to create a society where the easy choices, the popular choices, the things people naturally gravitate towards, the equivalent of today's Windows or YouTube or their high street bank, are ethical by default.
So privacy and freedom of speech wouldn't be niche features you have to hunt for. They'd be built-in baseline expectations.
Sure, exactly. The default settings should benefit the user, not exploit them. Using the standard convenient option shouldn't automatically mean sacrificing your privacy or freedom.
And how do we get there? How do these defaults become sane?
Well, the sources suggest a few paths, none easy. Existing institutions need massive pressure, maybe reform led by ethical insiders, or they need strong regulation that mandates privacy as a fundamental right. Or, as they provocatively put it, the existing harmful institutions need to be burned down and replaced entirely with new structures built on ethical foundations from the start.
So it's a fundamental shift required. Because the problem isn't just companies wanting to make money.
No, the analysis is clear. Profit is part of it, sure, but it's also about power and control. The entire setup of society, from laws to technology standards to economic incentives, is currently geared towards keeping power concentrated and preventing it from shifting back towards individuals and communities.
Okay, so wrapping this deep dive up, the core argument we've explored is that the tech solutions we rely on, they're mostly just bandages. The real structure of control is physical and systemic.
Yeah, fundamentally. And changing that requires confronting who owns the infrastructure and who sets the rules. It's not just about code, it's about power.
Which leaves us, and you listening, with a really challenging final thought. The sources claim that the powerful actively promote certain ideas, they call them memes, to maintain their control. Ideas like, property rights are sacred, the law must always be obeyed, profit is the ultimate good. We often repeat these without thinking.
So if the answer to can we avoid the botnet right now is, as these sources suggest, a hard yes, it's impossible.
Then what fundamental institution, what bedrock assumption about how society must work, something we probably accept as totally natural and unchangeable right now, needs to be the very first thing we question or challenge in order to even begin shifting that balance of power back towards real privacy and freedom?